In today's video, I want to talk about Jiu-Jitsu and what it means for us as men in regards to male initiation, how it's helped me regain my power and grow in masculinity. Masculinity seems to be a topic or popular topic of discussion the last 5 to 10 years. And why initiation? Well, today, men, we no longer have an initiation process. If you were to go back, several hundred years ago, we had some form of a rite of passage, some form of initiation where each young man was initiated into his manhood. Well, we don't have those rituals anymore. Some cultures in other countries have maintained that, but here in the West, we've definitely lost that, and I want to touch on that today. Now, before I do, I want to give some context of where all this is coming from, and I want to give you some context out of the book of Genesis. This comes from Genesis 3:8. And I think this is important to know because this leads to all of our default settings and why society is struggling as a whole and why men are struggling to show up in the way that we want to show up. So this is from Genesis 3:8. It says, when they heard the sound of the Lord God moving about in the garden at the breezy time of day, the man and his wife hid themselves from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. The Lord God called to man and asked him, "Where are you?" And he answered, "I heard you in the garden, but I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." So that's Genesis 3:8 through 10. And so within this reading, from that point on, men and women were set with particular default settings. So I just want to break down really quick what I covered. So, the fall of Adam and Eve has happened. God comes into the garden. They hear him, and they hide. Their conscience is now illuminated, and they know that they are naked. And so they hide within the garden. So what is a garden? Think of it as hiding within your place of comfort. And so when God asked him, "Where are you?" he wasn't asking him for his geographical location. God is omniscient. He's all-knowing, so he knows exactly where he is, geographically. He's asking him, "Where are you in relation to me? Where is our relationship?" So what he was doing there is he was giving Adam an opportunity for confession, to reconcile himself back to God. But Adam didn't take that opportunity. In fact, he began to point the finger and blame his wife. And so ultimately what Adam did was he chose the path of passivity, and that is our default setting as men is passivity. We'll just let our wife, do it. We'll just let so-and-so do it because, maybe they're better at it. Okay. And so what men do is we hide, right? We choose passivity. And the problem with that, where that goes wrong is when you choose the path of passivity, you begin to allow life to happen to you. Nothing's ever your fault. We don't take ownership or responsibility for situations, circumstances, and ultimately we become a victim. We become powerless. Women's default setting is control. So because she felt Adam wasn't doing anything, she felt she needed to reach out beyond herself, remove herself from the place of authority, and take control of the situation, ate the fruit and gave it to Adam, and he was passive, and so he ate. So that's the backdrop here of what we're talking about. And this ultimately leads to, as I mentioned, our default settings. So really quick, I want to touch on masculine and feminine energy because this is relative to what I want to share today. So masculine and feminine energy is very simple to understand. Masculine energy is designed to act, right, to give, and female energy is designed to respond. It's designed to receive. From a spiritual perspective, God plays the masculine role, right? He acts, he creates, he sets everything in order. And we as humanity, we as his children, we play the feminine role. So God acts and we are to respond. And the response that we are to offer him is our faith. which is submission of our will and our intellect to him. And why in the world would we want to submit our will and our intellect to God? Well, because the human will is the cause of evil. If in St. Augustine's Confessions, this is a big hurdle for him. He's seeking to understand the cause of evil. And he ultimately concludes and comes to the conclusion that the human will is the cause of evil. He says here in Confessions, he says, people would rather hold that you suffer evil than we commit it. We think that everything, just kind of happens to us when actually we're the ones that commit evil. That's the big question. That's the big atheistic question is, well, if God exists, if this all-powerful God exists, all-knowing God, why does he allow evil to exist? Well, it comes down to our free will, really. I'll give you an example. Yes, God knows what we're going to do. God knows the path we're going to choose, but it's still up to us to choose that path. And so imagine this scenario. Maybe you and I are standing on top of a building, and we see what looks like a car collision about to happen, or maybe someone's about to cross the road, and we see the car oncoming. Now, we have all knowledge. We know what's about to happen, but yet we can't do anything about it. That would be an example there of free will. And so, it's just interesting how the moment that, everything, war breaks out, tragedy happens, we want to blame God, but yet we don't put ourselves, on the jury seat, on trial. We don't put the human person on trial. It's just very interesting. But back to the will, right? So when we submit our will and our intellect to him, which requires humility, he can then direct our path to what is truly good. Otherwise, what happens is, and this is where we're at in the world, otherwise we become the arbiters of what is objectively good and evil. I decide what is good and evil. Well, how is that turning out for us? It's not turning out very well. Because from God, only good can come. If God, why does God allow evil? Why did God create us if we create evil? Well, God doesn't create evil. Good, only goodness comes from God. Okay? We pervert and we abuse our freedom to do evil by by detaching ourselves from God, by denying religion. All that leads to where we're at today. And so where does Jiu-Jitsu come into this? Where does male initiation come into this? Well, Jiu-Jitsu will teach you, my friend. Jiu-Jitsu will teach you everything you will ever need to know about how to live your life, period. It will teach you how to respond. It will teach you how to surrender control. It will teach you how to lead. It will teach you how to teach. And it will show you the power and the value of community. And one of the key important pieces here is it will teach you how to solve problems. So one of men's default settings is solving problems. And on the mat, you must solve an intelligent 150 to 200 plus pound problem that's staring you down and wants to take you out. And if you metaphorically turn your back on your problem, death awaits you. Right? So jiu-jitsu is like one of the ultimate metaphors for life. You can't turn your back from your problems. If you do, you're going to get choked out. You have to face the problem and you have to figure it out. So it's the undisputed king for helping men develop and build his soul. So within the Hardstyle Academy, we teach this concept called soul building, right? So what does it mean to build the soul? It means to develop the 5 elements of a strong man. So within the Hardstyle Academy, it's a framework that we take our students through that teaches them how to be strong in their mind, so how to be strong mentally, how to think, how to be strong physically, so that's the physical training component, how to be strong emotionally, which is how to respond to your emotions, how to respond to the thoughts that you're having. So element 3 is how to respond to element 1, right? Because element 1, our mind, our brain is always taking in thoughts, right? We're always thinking, we're always having, thoughts, but we can choose what meaning we give to those thoughts. Element 4 is strong spiritually, how to develop how to be strong in spirit, how to develop a spiritual practice. And number element 5 is strong in community, and that's the foundation of what I want to share with you today. And I think it's innately that part of the soul building process that magnetizes men to combat sports, to jiu-jitsu, to martial arts, to military units, you name it. And it's community. So as I mentioned, that's the title of this video, is Jiu-Jitsu is Male Initiation. So strong in community is about service, okay? It's about putting others' needs before your own. It's about death to self, denial of self, but it's about earning respect as well, earning respect and being initiated into manhood, into your God-given masculinity. Here's how it works. So in the world of jiu-jitsu, like if I tap you, this means I beat you, right? So from a morbid perspective, I killed you. Now you must respect me, right? You can't talk smack. You have to humbly accept your beating, and you can't insult the guy that just handed you the beating, right? Like he literally just kicked your butt. All you can do is gather up the shattered pieces of your ego, come back, train more, and become better. Like that's the simplified process. So in jiu-jitsu, you are welcomed into a community of other men who are further along the journey than yourself. That's what's happening on the mat. It's also about protecting your brother. So a little bit of like a brother in arms type feel is going on here. So even though in any moment, right, you're mounted on top of your brother, you've got him in a chokehold, you've got him in a submission attempt, like if you did not like that person, you could take his life, right? So obviously on the mat, we choose not to do that. We're training partners. We're helping each other get better. And oddly enough, this is what I'd call the paradox of safety. So it's the only place where you know that you're safe, which is paradoxical, right? Being safe in a dangerous situation. So someone's got your back, they're sinking in a choke, but yet you're calm through that situation. You're learning how to better respond to circumstance, to trial, to pressure, to adversity. Some of the best conversations I've ever had with my BJJ brothers came after an intense rolling session. And you want to know something? We rarely talked about jiu-jitsu. We rarely talked about the latest BJJ technique of the week. Like, we talked about work, personal stuff at home, internal struggles, their faith. Little did I know, we're building and we're creating soul connections. And to be honest, I'm not sure why, some of us opened up the way that we did. Perhaps, it's the trust that we develop between each other on the mat. I think that's definitely a big contributor, is when you're training with somebody, you're putting your trust into them. Like, hey man, I trust that when you get me in a position, when you get me in a submission, like you're not going to crank on it. You're going to take care of me. And definitely there could be like the endorphin overload that jiu-jitsu produces, at the end of every session. Everybody's just kind of like, zoned out a little bit. But as time has passed, I've realized that there's definitely a deeper connection in jiu-jitsu than we see on the surface. And why it is important to be a part of a community, a gang of better men. And what connection could that be? I've been training jiu-jitsu now almost 24 years. And as I mentioned, as men, we develop a certain respect, a certain trust between each other on the mat. Likely because the power of life and death is literally in our hands. And at any moment, either of us could cripple and literally, hurt someone. Hold that choke a little bit longer than you should, and your training partner just won't be the same. Crank on the shoulder, crank on the heel, and your BJJ brother will never, be the same father to his children, the wife to, the husband to his wife. But we don't do that because we've developed this underlying trust for one another, almost like a you watch my back, like I watch your back kind of trust. And what that does is that creates a deep connection with each other, almost, as I mentioned, a brother in arms kind of connection. And you know what, man? It's it's a connection we never knew we wanted. Maybe it's our opportunity to become vulnerable without giving up the man card, as they say. Knowing that it's okay to not be in control of everything. Remember, as I mentioned, since we play the female role from a spiritual perspective, and the female role wants to control everything, that's one of our default settings. Well, guess what? In jiu-jitsu, you're not going to be in control. And so men have never been taught how to feel. We've been never taught how to respond by our own father, by other older men. We've been taught it's not cool to show emotions. It's not cool to be vulnerable. And, man, on a deep, metaphysical level, this is what jiu-jitsu and surrounding yourself with a gang of men is all about. It's allowing yourself to become vulnerable. Just think about it. As I mentioned, on the mat, you will become vulnerable, a lot. You'll get your butt kicked, whether you like it or not. You will not be in control. And the most ego bruising part is you will submit to another man. Your ego will get crushed by a much smaller opponent, much smaller training partner. And you will feel like a loser in the beginning. And you know what? You need to be 100% okay with that. And that's what makes jiu-jitsu jiu-jitsu. That's what makes jiu-jitsu powerful. More than the sweeps and the techniques. It's these underlying soul connections, this soul building that's happening. And as men, we don't know it, but we crave it. We crave that soul connection. We crave that community. We crave everything that I've just talked about. The ability to know how to respond to situations in life, how to solve problems. We all want to be led. Every person wants to be led. But we definitely want that soul connection and respect and we want respect from other men, for sure. And so, as I mentioned, men don't know how to respond. That's one. I mean, as I shared from the spiritual perspective, that's our, the masculine energy acts, the feminine responds. Well, we don't know how to respond. We don't know how to get from A to B oftentimes. And even if we did, we don't want to lose our, quote unquote power as men. We don't want to look like sissies in the process. We don't want to feel like a loser, watching from the sideline. And how do I know all of this is real and not just a bunch of mushy BS? After 24 years of training jiu-jitsu with some of the most awesome people, talk to any one of these guys that have ever had to spend any amount of time off the mat. So after spending any amount of time on the mat, you fall in love with the art, you fall in love with the people that you're training with. And just wait till an injury. Talk to any of these guys, any guy that if you don't train jiu-jitsu and eventually you do, talk to anyone that's had to be sidelined by an injury. What is their life like afterwards? Their ability to process their emotions, to think, to solve problems, how to respond. They're a wreck. They're an emotional wreck. And when you're in the thick of it, let's say you miss jiu-jitsu for whatever reason, work, injury is usually the biggest one for some guys where we have to, you're kind of forced to take time off. If you tweak something, you won't even know why you're an emotional wreck, why maybe you're snappier with your wife and your kids, why you're, snappier with maybe your coworkers or your employees. And you won't know why. I would say it's It's a result of that deeper underlying connection that you've developed with your fellow man through community. And you know what's funny is that it may not even be the reason of why you started jiu-jitsu. But at the end of the day, within a gang of better men, within a community, it's your safe space. I hate talking about safe spaces, but it's your safe space. It's a place of initiation. That place where you're welcomed into a community of other men who are further along the journey from yourself. And that part's important because, as men, we can't, look at this two ways. You can't learn anything from someone your own age. Or you can't learn anything really from someone that's on the same place of the journey as yourself. Well, when you start jiu-jitsu, everybody's further along than you. Everybody's a different place, different state. Within that community, it's a place to learn how to solve problems effectively. It's a place to earn respect and appreciation, which is one big need for men. We want to feel like we are appreciated for the things that we're doing. It's a place to provide and to receive value in a world seeking to devalue you. So if you want to be a strong role model for your kids, if you want to be the role model that maybe you never had growing up, then surrounding yourself with a gang of better men ahead of you in the journey. What is Joseph Campbell? He calls it the hero's journey. It's crucial to surround yourself with those type of men to becoming better, to becoming a better man, husband, father, the man that you're called to be, essentially, the strongest, most elite version of yourself. So without the support of a community, really, men are lost. And men are failing. Just look around. Men are failing today. Our women and children are under attack. And we're sitting around doing nothing. Again, just look around you. Women and children are being attacked, and men are doing nothing. Just like Adam in the garden, we have chosen the path of passivity. In the garden, Adam stood by and did nothing while the devil planted the seeds of confusion and doubt into his wife's mind, the very woman that he was entrusted to protect. And the end result, the consequence, was the fall of humanity. So today, men are lost, completely confused, and our women are pretty dang pissed off about it. And the sad part is some men are actually okay with where they're at and are not willing to change. Or they're incapable of change, which, again, is the reason why they need a community. They need to be shown. If they're incapable of change, it's likely they don't have anybody, number one, that they can trust, because that's one of the first, Strong in Emotion, one of our first coaching sessions on Strong in Emotion is building a foundation of trust. So most men won't be vulnerable. Most men won't show emotion. Most men are incapable of change because no foundation of trust has been set. Or the trust that they had with one particular person where they did get vulnerable, that trust was violated. And so men are likely incapable of change because they don't have anybody that they can trust to take them through the journey. And so you have men that are trying to make change, that are trying to do things. Many of them are just doing way too much because a lot of the message is, and I'm all about going hard, but the message is go hard at all costs. Keep doing all these things. And what happens is they get stuck in this rut of thinking that doing more is better. They get trapped on this workout roller coaster where they're just kind of hopping from one workout routine to the next. They struggle with consistency, the new workout, routine, the new system, trying to piece together multiple programs and strategies. They're trying to make these efforts to change and to improve and to get better, but they're really struggling with the consistency, the step-by-step process. Other guys are trapped in one of the concepts that we talk about in our coaching is this concept called the toxic cycle. Toxic cycle is a cycle where men are trapped in their stories, and based on the belief that we have about ourselves, we create a particular problem, and it's that same problem mindset that keeps us from solving the problem, and you get trapped into this cycle. So many guys are trapped in a toxic cycle of alcohol, drugs, porn, self-care, as I talked about in a previous episode. Many of us are trapped there. But the men who are excelling in life are better at these three things. They're better at, number one, like less is more approach. The reason why less is more is important is because it's repeatable. The more simple you can make the process, like simplicity leads to repeatability, and repeatability leads to long-term progress. Consistency, and consistency is the mother of success. Men that are excelling in life also possess a real strategy rooted in a proven system. So strategy and system together. So within that, you need a system to put a strategy together. They have this. And, honestly, men are willing to invest in themselves, whether it's financially invest in themselves or they're reading and they're developing themselves. And the truth is, man, like your success, my success, our success in life, it doesn't happen by accident. It's not magic. You really need a community of men, as I've mentioned multiple times here. You need a community of men further along the journey than yourself. But I could be totally wrong. Maybe you're different. Maybe you're so disciplined that you can follow a plan and solve, you can follow this one plan, solve all your problems by your lonesome, and that's awesome. Perfect. But most men can't pull this off. I've been doing this for 24 years, and I've worked with thousands of people, men and women. Most people can't pull this off. We all need reality checks. We need help to see past our own delusions, and we need support to stay focused on the big picture, whether it's wealth, health, inner peace, you name it. And so if you want to become the strongest, most elite version of yourself so you can bring more value to your community, I'm excited to let you know that we've just revamped our men's elite coaching program, and enrollment is open. So for 16 weeks, what we do is we help men build stronger, leaner, and more capable bodies so they can become the strongest, most elite version of themselves. And the reason why the program is so effective is because we guide you through the 5 elements of the strongman. Remember, we talked about today, the soul building process. It's the framework that helps you become a more integrated man, how to integrate becoming strong in your mind, being strong physically, so training programs, nutrition strategies, how to be strong emotionally, how to respond to situations in life, how to be strong spiritually, and most importantly, what we talked about today is how to be strong in community, how to be of service, how to bring value to your community. So unlike other programs which focus on one aspect of your being, like just workouts and nutrition, which are, really represent only like 6% of your day, the 5 elements are a means of voluntary suffering to grow in virtue, forging you into a complete man, a better man. A man that your kids want to emulate, a man your wife can't keep her hands off of, a man your community needs to change the broken world around you. But in a nutshell, our program helps you become the strongest, most elite version of yourself. And if this sounds like a result that you would like for your life, I'm going to drop the enrollment details in the description. From there, you can enroll into our elite program. And if you got questions, drop them in the comments below. Or if you want to chat with me privately, I'll put another link to join our academy. You can join as a free member. Inside the academy, it's our own, think of it as our own social network. You can direct message me. If you've got questions about the elite program, shoot me a direct message. Let me know what your questions are. And if we need to, we can set up a quick time to chat. I could be happy to answer all of your questions. That way we can get you started to becoming the most elite and the strongest version of yourself. So that's all I got for today, man. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.